Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. So this is part 2 of my strawberry fields pouch. Yes, I have a name, a little house in the strawberry field. So yesterday I filmed part 1 and then I spent the day watching TV, movies, hanging out and stitched. So I'm at the stage now. Some additional decisions have been made, some stages have been completed. So today's video is to catch you up to speed, which inadvertently will give you the next steps to do to finish your pouch. I will dedicate probably the next 2 days to finishing the pouch and film little segments to link it all together. So I won't be able to get a sit and stitch day like I did yesterday. I've got some errands to run and places to go, people to see. So what I'll do is just keep nibbling away at it and film little bits, link it all together, and by the end of this video, it will be completed. Okay, so let's backtrack. On the front of the pouch, I've completed covering the little bump here, which is a pincushion containing the walnut shell. That went together really easily. I poured in the walnut shell to that tube that you saw in the previous video, just laid it down, and with just sewing machine cotton, went around and fastened it in the spot that I wanted. I think I did about 2 laps around. That gave it the security that it won't go anywhere. Then I started laying over the top of the bump, pretending it's pretty much not there, and continuing to collage this corner up towards where the little pin cushion's going to go. Not the pin cushion, the needle keep. Now, these 2 crocheted elements are not yet attached. They've been moved everywhere. I still am sure I'm going to put them on, and this morning I had another fiddle and I'm sort of happy with that position. So they're coming off for now because I still have some construction things to do and they will just get in my way. So they're just waiting for the final moment to be added. What else did I do? Oh, the little butterfly, I stitched that little piece of lace on there to hide the blue, because if you recall, I was sort of struggling with the fact that it was a blue that hadn't appeared anywhere. I do have a pale warm blue here, and this was so bright. So by putting that little bit of lace on, I'm really, really happy with it. And it's the lace that's over here, so it sort of, ties the piece together. So I then went around and just stitched that on. There's still a little bit of movement in the wings, but there's little stitches holding that little butterfly on. So the little butterfly has its home and is secure. Now, I did this morning actually a lot of work on the needle book, and that's when I sort of thought, you know what, this happened yesterday, this pin cushion here works like a treat. I will work on the needle book this morning. So that's where I'm at, and of course then I've thought time to jump on and bring you guys up to speed. So let's just deconstruct the needle book because we're in a stage of construction with that. The crocheted little strawberry garland is going to work. I'm not going to change it. Every thread I had was a lot finer than these, so it would be tiny. And I really like the chunkiness of it because my piece has got quite chunky, and I love it. So I'm not going to redo it. If I do, I'd probably have to purchase some thread that was finer. Like this is just like a wool, like a baby's wool. So, but all good. Now, what I'm going to do with you is do a little bit more work on the front, which is using the black thread. We'll come back to that because it's pinned on the pouch at the moment. Inside, I have stitched on that little pocket. I have found a scrap of material which I then just stitched down that side because this red piece of fabric didn't quite make it to the end of the wadding that is underneath. So that was a good way to disguise the fact that I was a little bit short, gives a little bit of interest. That fabric appears in the little house, so it sort of feels like I've tied it all together, if that makes sense. So what I've done at the moment is I've pinned it into position. The This little bit of lace here is just to soften the top edge. I sort of thought it needed just a little bit of something to carry the design up onto this rather bold top, as is the butterfly's wing. The little needle keep goes up onto it just a fraction. And then this little bit of lace. So it's I sort of feel like the whole front feels like it's all connected. So what I'm going to do is leave that for a second, and when I'm finished showing you what I've done on the back, I want to unpin that and do a little bit of work on the little house. So let's just put that to one side. Now the back. I'm yet to do the extra stitching of the fern. Let me bring that up to the camera so you can see all that feather stitch that I've put in place. Well, I've found a cotton that suits, so that's something I will do off camera and sort of get a little bit more texture in around my thread painted element on the back of my pouch. This is the bark cloth that I've been playing with. So I'll just put that to one side, another little job. Now, this little piece here, I had thought that it would nestle in here somewhere and I would embroider it like I did the little flowers here. I might zoom in now because we're starting to get into a little bit of detail. It just didn't find a spot. I think I'd rather add these to the piece and make the front chunky, but the back is a little bit more elegant, if you will. So what I decided to do is I found a little bit of scrap cloth from when I was tearing up the, what do you call them? The flower sacks for my Just Because quilt. This is off the back of a flower sack. So I've pinned it here, and the plan is to still embroider this little one with the silk ribbon, and that's what I used on the front. It is 4mm silk ribbon, antique pearl, and the brand is Colour Streams. You can get Colour Streams all over the place in Australia because it is an Australian company that makes them. If you wanted a collection of colour streams, head over to Jenifer Cloustons' website. She's put together some gorgeous packs of threads and silk ribbons because she's always using them in her work. So that'd be one port of call at least to check out. If you just wanted one or two colours, you might need to sort of track them down with some retailers. I think you can even order them direct, but I can't remember if that's true or not. It's been a little while since I've been on their website. So the plan for this little piece is to stitch the flowers in the thread, in the ribbon, and then come back and thread paint those leaves. So this then would be ripped and snipped off of here, like so. And this then becomes now a little piece that potentially can go somewhere. So once stitched, what I was thinking is on the back here, remember I said I wanted to put a little bit of lace somewhere? Well, I'm thinking that this little piece will go here once I've stitched it, just to add, you know, a little something. And then I've still got my lace basket here from the other day, and I thought what we do is make a decision about this. Remember I pulled it out and said, oh, that'd be nice. And I had just put, you know, in my head I was looking at two triangles and cutting it there, but then this sort of happened. The cloth is a little bit crinkled up. You see how it's kinked there? I'm going to stitch that down with that kink. I sort of like the texture that that gives. So I'm thinking we only need the one little piece. If that got cut, just to sort of start building a bit of a something. Don't know what that technical word is. So what I'm going to do is snip that off, and that will join there. So let's pop a pin in it. So that's more work for me to do over the next few days. I couldn't believe how long the video was for part 1. That time got away. There's a lot in this project, even though it's just a pouch. There's a lot of little elements, and that's the beauty of these pouches, is you can explore little vignettes of things, like some of this stitching and some camphor stitching, and, you know, make a butterfly to put on your piece like that. Like, it's just, the days just roll on. So I'm happy with that. I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's talk about the lining. So I'll come back to this piece now. Let's just secure my little needle keep with the little cluster of strawberries. Now, what I did do yesterday is I quilted this. Let me bring it up to the camera. Can you see the red diagonal stitch? So what I decided to do is take advantage of some lines. Let me just come up a little bit. And I worked out that every second row I could scoot through with some running stitch. I was careful not to come through to the front, which wasn't hard not to do because there's so much stuff here anyway. So the needle just slithered through the wadding that I've sandwiched between the 2 layers, which is classic me. I always like to have something in between. I like the texture it gives as well. I don't know if you can see the bump there? Can you see? That's the little inserted piece of walnut shell pillow that's hiding in there. So I just pretended it wasn't there. Over the bump I went and carried on. I then got that piece of striped ticking. Let me just put a pin in that little piece of lace there before it flips and flops everywhere. This striped ticking, I've put 2 running stitches in a row on that edge so that it's sort of perfectly positioned on my work, hid all of the top of my panel. Then I had that excess wadding in under there, which was doubled, so it's really nice and thick. And then I came down over the top, and then this morning I did 2 rows of running stitch. So for me, that panel inside is complete. I've quilted it on the diagonal, and I've attached the top piece of the ticking. So let's flip back to this piece. So what I'll do is not only complete and secure that onto here, on this side I've got these strawberries, and once again we've got this diagonal pattern happening. So just to make sure I know where I'm going, you can see my pins in a row. I've just popped a pin in to not only hold it to, you know, the piece, it's to tell me that that's the next row that I need to go up. So once again, I will come along with my red thread. I did consider using cream, but I'm going to use the red. Let's be bold. And I'll do a running stitch through. Alternate rows of strawberries, and that will give the same style of stitching as this side. Once that's completed, and once this is done, as in applied, embroidered and stitched on, and all of this extra, you know, stitching here, I then can, let me just move this tray. These little elements here belong to the house. Still deciding whether I use them, but we'll get back to that house in a minute. What I'll do you remember that this fabric was a little short? So I ended up cutting a piece of ticking that was just that little bit longer. I'm fingers crossed I got my measurements right. So when it comes to doing the ticking on this panel, what I'll do is I will line up my piece like so, and then I can, that needs to come down lower. See, this is why it pays to always check, doesn't it? Let's imagine this lower, because that ticking is going to be creeping into the space of this little element if I don't watch myself there. So bottoms are all lined up. Yep. So the ticking then, that then folds down. Where is some more pins? So let's assume that that's just sitting there nicely. the ticking then, see those edges? I can do that and pin it. And then if the plan works, when I flip it, it should be about the same size. Drum roll. So let's now flip that and flip that. Give us a bit of an eye view of where everything is. It's a little bit short, but I think my wadding is a little bit big. Yeah, it is a little bit short. Oh, no. No, that'll work. That little bit extra has helped. So it should all come to plan. So then let's assume that I've quilted the back. I've then done the ticking. I've done my 2 rows of running stitch. So now it's a completed panel. So just to sort of pretend that we're jumping forward, I will show all this in this video, is right sides together would be your normal to turn it the right side out, but I want that scrappy look. So if you're familiar with my rice bags, all of these technically could be seams all hidden, but I like that scrappy, messy look, and it then eliminates the sewing machine, and I can hand stitch. So let's pretend that that is finished. That is now finished, and I'm just going to line up my 2 panels, and I'm just going to overcast stitch right down the side, around the bottom, and that's it, done. So that's the final, I guess, stage of this process. So I guess now you can sort of know where you're heading with the construction of your pouch. The other thing you could do if you were concerned that the pouch is too open is you could put a fastening on it. I don't think I will, but I guess if stuff is falling out, wouldn't be too hard to put a button here and have a little loop come over. It's up to you. At this stage, I'm going to try it without, but, who knows what the future will hold. So that's where I'm at with my pouch so far. So my homework will be to complete this and also complete this. I think that's about all I wanted to say there. So I can put that back in my little tray for a pick up and stitch. Let's focus on this little needle book. So the little latch, of course, is this crocheted little charm. What I've done is I haven't found the middle of the charm. I've sort of come up a little bit here and shortened this guy up because he's not part of the process of fastening. He's just hanging there. So my thought was just, 1/2 inch, secure him in under the needle book when the needle book gets attached to the pouch. And then this extra length is enough to go round twice the button. So if you haven't stitched this yet and you're yet to go across to the video that I've linked below and make yourself a little guy, I thought I'd better tell you the length. Where is my little tape measure here? The length of the chain, I can't remember how many single chains I did, but if I tell you the length, you can at least, it's about 10 centimetres. You could probably even make it 12 centimetres, and then you'd know for sure it's probably closer to 9.5 centimetres. Then you'd know you've got enough length here to not only secure it and have that hang properly under your needle book, but you've also got enough to go around your button to create your closure. Okay, so I've pinned this little guy into position. So when I'm finished stitching the little house and all the little embellishments, my plan is to run a invisible stitch through with my cotton to secure it, and I'll also go through here. Then I'll come back with decorative stitches in my mind. So that might be grab my black thread again and maybe do some overcast stitch here, just say 2 centimetres worth, so it looks like it's holding it, but it's not, it's purely decorative. I'm really a fan of secure everything first then come back and use your threads to create, you know, decorative little X's, or you might do a little cross stitch here, 3 of them. And you would think, looking at it, that the cross stitch is holding it to the pouch, but it's not. It's invisible stitching, tacking it all down. So let's assume that I'm yet to do that, which I am. I'll get rid of these pins because we've got a little bit of work to do on the needle book yet. So that needs to be secured because it's going to be peeking out from under the needle book. My needle book, I have laid the red fabric down. I'm probably repeating myself. And then with red cotton, there's all little invisible stitches through there to hold it. And it was a little bit taller. I think I trimmed a little bit off too. What was the measurement of this? 10.5 centimetres. So for those who are in inches, that's 4 1/4. So it's only little. That fabric just peeked over, which just gave it an interesting little element. I haven't done anything here. It's sort of not going to be seen. So I haven't wasted any fabric because that's the back and it's going to be stitched down. I then, when I folded the little house, I brought the house right up to the fold, and peeking through is a little bit of that fabric. So it's sort of a bit of a waterfall edge. I'm a bit of a fan of a waterfall edge on fabric books, needle books, things like that, because it allows you to, you know, peek additional fabrics out. So that would look quite simple if it was like that. You just push that fold back 1/4 inch, and now you've got all this cuteness popping out, and it just sort of ties it all together. Position, you know, wherever you want, but I'm keeping my tools this side, the pins and needles, and then the pin cushion here, and this is just, you know, more decorative. So what I wanted to do while we're filming, oh gosh, 22 minutes already, is do a little bit of black stitching on my piece. So DMC. Now, remember I mentioned in the last video I was inspired by Dawn Meldrum. That's the name of her channel. Dawn's a good mate. She has been stitching some little kooky birds to add to her house box that she did while she was on a retreat with me. So that black thread, it's, you know, that addition of black stitching just really makes things pop. It's like when I do a watercolour picture, I'll often come back with a black pen and do a little bit of a doodly, sketchy sort of element to a picture to, you know, make sure it looks like whatever it's meant to look like. And doing it to your fabric is a good little idea too. So I have gone ahead and stitched my little window. I've also come around here, stopped on the other side of the door, continued on, and then boarded up. So now it's a decision of what I do next. Now you can do a back stitch, you can do a running stitch, you can do whatever you want. I'm a bit of a fan of couching, so I'm just going to slither my needle in there and we'll do something for that door. Because with couching, not only, we've got to see that nick off the fabric, we're just going to work with it. It's a wonky house, doesn't matter. I like couching on my little houses because it allows you to do these big, giant, quick stitches. Trying not to come through, and I don't want to sew my little pocket shut either. Did I mention the pocket? He's on, he's secure. I didn't end up embroidering there. Now that I look at it, I've forgotten that, so I should be able to still do that because I'll be able to slide my needle in that's folded, so that shouldn't be too hard. And look, you could fiddle with these projects for hours, just adding more and more. So I'm just going to take the needle down to that corner. This is all about getting, check that I haven't come through, yep. All about getting some detail on your little house with some stitches. So I'm now going to go up to there. Don't pull it too tight. Let the thread just sit relaxed. This is a vintage anchor cotton that I picked up in a thrift store, so it's quite a stiff feel about it. So this is the final stitch now, and I'm going back up to that first stitch and about the middle. So this is now the couching side of things. I just want to put a few little stitches around to secure these bigger ones. So I'm going to whip around again, just a tiny little stitch over that first one. Don't think I need a stitch on that bent bit of the door because that's only little. Double check I'm not stitching my pocket closed. It happens, especially when you're engrossed in a movie. There we go, down to there. Now that little bottom bit is going to be stitched, and I'm going to slither between the layers again. You could do this with one thread, but two looks pretty neat. I'm happy with that. I stitched my little number on. Do I want to frame it? So I'm just going to bring up, it might be too much. I'm going to bring that up there. Do we go round that? Yeah, I like it. Let's do it. I probably did this construction of this little needle book a bit backwards. I probably could have kept everything separated, the layers, did this and then, you know, put this pocket on the red and that on there and then brought it all together, but that never goes to plan. Doesn't matter. If you take your time, you can slither your needle through layers. That's one of the benefits of having a little bit extra fabric in your project, because, you know, you might decide to embroider some little flowers. Okay, maybe that door could have a bit more detail. What if we do a cross on the door to sort of make it look like it's wood paneling? See, I'm jumping all over the place. See what I mean? Doesn't matter. Just a little detail. Check that I'm not stitching that pocket. Yeah, well, if I'd constructed this more logically, we wouldn't need to check the pockets are not being stitched close. I really like to use fabrics that have lines on them for houses, because it allows you to, I shouldn't have gone out there, I should have just stayed where I was, because we're going to need a little stitch where the two cross. I could see if I was pushing this into a suitcase, I could catch that thread. So check my pocket. I'm just going to do a little couching stitch there. Now I want to head to the roof. So where are we going to pop up? We might head towards that button. Just tuck the needle in there for a moment while we decide the next element of design. There's our little door. Not that that's showing up real well. Dark on, that's a little bit better. But just a little detail. So I'm over here now. One issue I've got is not much thread. So I might be able to get across. And I've got to decide how I'm going to do this. I'm going to go past the side walls and then up there. Or do I do a stitch over? Look, I know I don't want to go past the walls, so let's get this stitch anchored in, and then I've run out of thread. So what we'll do is we'll sneak up over here. Become unthreaded, and I'll rethread, and then we'll make some more design decisions on how this little house will come together. So I'm just going to peel back there, and I'm going to tuck my little knot, not coming through, no, I'm going to just tuck my little knot in there. It won't be seen. And it didn't come through. So we are good to go. Oh gosh, look at that. It's gone all wriggly. What happened there? Okay, that didn't work real well, did it, guys? See if I can tighten up the one that's gone wriggly. There we go. No, that's got it. Oh, now I've got it. Snap. Did it snap at the knot? Yeah, it did. So that's all right. Oh, no, it's not. Look. All right, there you go. Give up on that idea. I've snipped it, pulled that knot back out. Oh, I thought I could get that last stitch in there and use the little bit of thread and I tell you, but that's okay. It doesn't always go to plan, does it? I'm finding too, the feeling of this DMC, it's really coarse, like it's old, and that snapped pretty easy. So I'd say we've got a bit of a perished thing happening here as well. Let's do a really secure knot because I'm not trusting this thread anymore. Even when I look at it, it looks like it's two thicknesses. There we go. That's nice and secure. Just trying to be too stingy, wasn't I, with my thread? All right, let's grab another two. Another one. It's very fine. I think it's anchor. Is it anchor? Oh, who knows? It's not even anchor. Oh, goodness knows what it is. It's good enough to do this type of stitching with. I wouldn't want to be sewing up a side seam to the pouch with it. I don't know what I'll use for that. I am thinking about dipping into my wools to make it quite chunky, being that the wool is on the little strawberries, but it's a decision for another day. All right, so let's keep embellishing our little house. I've got a little knot. I'll trim that tail because I want that knot to disappear in amongst the folds of fabric. Let's try that again. Let's pop up under there. Knot should be hidden. Take it across. And then being that that's quite a big length of stitch, double checking we're all good, I'm going to come straight back and couch. I didn't go past the roof line, past the side walls, and it looks a bit odd. So let's do that again. Got to be an architect to do this. All right, just a few mil pass I think will make it look all the better. Check that I haven't come through. Nope. Give it a little tug to make sure our tension is right. And now we're going to sneak back along there and add those itty bitty stitches just to secure that big long jump across. And here comes the fudge. Fudgy, what you doing? He's been sitting outside on the driveway in the morning sun. And I think Dad's on his way to the kitchen. He's up. So Fudge has probably heard a bit of action and has decided to make his way back in. So now that that's secure, just using the thread, you can start thinking about design. Now my logic would be to go like that, so you can sort of get a bit of a preview. I like that wonkiness. When I was chatting there, I did a cross section like that. and I thought maybe that. Pussy. And that. And then I'd come back across. No, I don't like that. Pussy. I'm going to continue with just straight up. Meow. You're probably thinking, gosh, she's got some frayed edges. I like that, so I'm leaving it. So if it bothers you, you could probably consider doing some needle turn applique. Just going to put a little stitch there. And then I'm going to jump across the roof over to here. Yes, pussy. What's the story? What's the weather like outside, Fudge? So that's, whoops. We don't want to do a loop. We just want to do that. Meow. And then I'm going to come up here again. Create that extra stitch. And the roof is a bit wonky there, so let's follow that wonk. See how it's cut, that's straight and that's not. I like that. Pussy. What you doing, Fudge? So I guess once this is stitched, I might toddle off and carry on with some of those other little elements that I'm yet to make. Yes, and then I'll pop back at the end of this and we will do the side seams. I'm just going to slither through there. I know it's a bit not quite the way I've been going, but I missed the stitch coming up right where the roof was, so I'm going to slide that little stitch in there to hide that little oversight. That then brings me up here, so I can then couch this down in the next stitch. So look, there are no rules. You do what you need to do to get your little house stitched. So I now can do a little stitch there and start working my way back up the roof line and put in the little couching stitch. That's a long stitch, that top, so I might do 3 little stitches. So much quicker than back stitch. Not peeking through. This could have a little bit of lace added to it as well. Haven't really thought too much about the embellishing. I did have some pieces cut off on part 1 of the video, which is sitting there. We need to make a decision, and I was thinking I'd need to tea dye them because they were so stark. So let's audition them again to see if that needs to happen or forget about that idea. Really comes down to the fabrics you use. It's not one rule suits all, because you might have gone for a real pastel colour palette for your strawberries. Mine's quite a primary colour, but then these antique tones have snuck in, which is classic me. All right, so there's the little house on the front. So the little laces that we had, I had that as an option for the little house. Oh, I like that still. But I want to see the little lines of black, so I might have to fudgy bee. So I might just lift it up a fraction, or do I do it higher? No, that doesn't look right. Do I turn it like guttering? That doesn't look right. I think it needs to sit just off the black, so I still see my black line. I like that. I'm not going to dye it because I can see white elsewhere, so it doesn't look odd. Probably would look odd if I dyed it, to be honest. So that'll be there just as a little detail. And this little flower was being considered as a bit of foliage in the garden. Get him the right way. I'm still liking that idea. Sort of just helps tie it in. If anything, this looked very simple and naive. This looks crazy and messy. So I think sometimes adding those little details like that helps it feel like it is part of the project. So once that's stitched on, how are we going for time? 40 minutes. Let's just do a quick little stitch and show you how I'd attach it, because this can be attached even if that is attached. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to start with the white thread, but I may need to change to red thread when I get into this area, but that white thread will work there. So we're going to attach the needle book. I do still need to stitch that. I'm pretty sure I can sneak that in, even with this attached. I'm putting the horse before the cart a little bit here, but, you know, she'll be right. That's typical. I need a big pin. I need to work out my fold is about there. Any more big pins? And that's about there. And I also need to secure that guy. So what I might do is start here. Where's my button? Remember, I'm going to tuck this under a little. Now, forward planning, you could do all of this before you put the backing fabric on. But because I tend to create on the fly, that just doesn't always pan out. But, you know, slow stitching a project together, as in by hand, gives you the opportunity to pivot when your design evolves. That's what I find. So I'm just putting a couple little anchoring stitches there. Like I said in the first video, this was meant to be just a pin cushion, something to stitch while I was on the road, and it's evolved into a pouch. Typical. But that's all good. I love all that because that's like allowing me to keep designing the projects, you know, not yet finished. I was saying that to someone actually at the retreat, that I guess the buzz for me is the designing. What are we going to make? How are we going to make it? So that's where my head is constantly thinking about all that. So once I figure something out, let's say it's a wing wong for a goose's bridle, and then it's just a case of, all right, I know it'll work. I've just got to actually do it. I find that the boring bit, and often it'll morph into an extra project, another thing, an add-on, you know, it just seems to evolve. And I think that's because the buzz for me is the construction side of it. How do we make it work? Let's check that button before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Yep. Beautiful. I sort of feel like I've lost a bit of length. Yeah, I have. Okay, hold the phone, Fudge. Let's do that again. What I've done is I've taken that further down. Hello, Fudge. See how that's a little bit further down? I need to bring that guy back up here because I've inadvertently lost a heap of ability to attach it around the button. So just double check that when you go to do it. Hey, Fudgy, what you doing? You're not in my way, Fudge, no. There was a video where Fudge and his head was in the way, and a couple people commented that they couldn't learn anything because the cat's head was in the way. So, Fudgy, be noted. You must stay out of the shot. There we go. See how I've brought that back up? So there's hardly anything in there. Therefore, that bit extra length should make the button closure work properly. All right, let's carry on with a little stitch to make sure that's all secure. And if you haven't started the project yet, you're still, contemplating your choices, don't do that bit until you've done all this bit. Then start making a pouch. That'd be my advice, because I'm having to make sure that my little stitches slither through all those layers. If you keep the needle nice and flat as you go through your fabric, it's pretty easy. If you start going down with your needle, well, you're going to pop out the other end. So keep your stitches flat. So I'm just going to go across to where that fabric colour changes. So technically now my little needlebook is nearly secured. Oops. So being that pale fabric is there, for a bit extra rigidity, I might even do some little invisible stitches up here. Why not? Catching the back. That'll just help it feel a little. Should we check that button? 1, 2, done. Gee, lucky I checked that. All right, so we're slithering up here. Okay. It's not coming through. Nope. This will make it really secure by having that random stitch line come back up through there. That's not going to go anywhere. Then I'll get my red thread and I'll stitch that down where that fold is, and that's going to be really secure on that little pouch. And look, at the end of the day, if I use it the first time and I'm sitting somewhere at an airport stitching or wherever, and I notice that it's just not quite secure, it's easy enough to drop a few stitches in. Now I'm coming back down that edge. That is not going to move. So that's how I plan to secure my needlebook. And as you do projects, I find I always have little scraps left over, and they always seem to end up on my needlebooks. So if there's a little piece of fabric rolling around my desk from another project, I can add it, to the needlebook. I know the one I often take that's all the French fabrics, that thing has even got fabrics tucked into pockets, so if I don't feel like doing the project that's with me, I just start stitching on the needlebook, and it's evolving. Every trip I go on, there's something getting added to it. It's nearly like a travel journal. I've got a bit of thread left of the white, so I'm scooting up here, and I'm gonna, great English, I'm going to secure that little scrap of lace there as well. It's just the right colour. That's nice and chunky, the top of the pouch, so that needle is sliding through there beautifully. Okay, so 50 minutes. No wonder that first video went for nearly an hour and a half. I couldn't believe it when I stopped the video. And I spent most of yesterday stitching on this thing, so don't these projects just get out of hand? I knew it would. As soon as strawberry started floating around in my head, I thought of a few other things too, so stay tuned. We'll be visiting the Strawberry Fields project. All right, I've just used that bit extra of fabric and thread, so I need a little bit more white to finish that. That's nice and strong. My closure's in place and it's ready to hold my house down with my little strawberries. Oh, I love it. All right, guys, I'll pause the video now. I can finish embellishing the front of my pouch. My little pin cushion in there. That's so cool. I love it when a project does a lot of things for me and it's useful. Otherwise, it just sits in the cupboard. All right, drum roll. Yeah, I think finish stitching, finish the back panel, and then I will be back with that all completed and we will stitch it together to make our pouch. And we've got still 10 minutes. Awesome. All right, guys, I will pause the video and see you in a moment. Okay, I'm back. I still not at the stage of stitching the side seams, but I'm just wanted to show you the stitching down of the seam, I guess the spine of the needle book. So I'm doing a little back stitch as I go, slithering my needle through so we don't come to the front. And that's going to secure the book. And then I was just sitting here thinking about the black thread and how I could bring that decorative element to, oh look, that would make a great pocket there. How I could bring the decorative element to the, I wonder if that should I make that a pocket? No, I'm not going to make it a pocket. To my piece. So I thought, turn the video on. Finish stitching the needlebook down in its entirety, which I've done now. I have also finished stitching that little bit of lace. I did that. See, there's a potential of a pocket behind the needlebook. There's another idea. So I'll just finish this off. I will probably go back and put some more stitches through there just to make sure that the little needle book sort of doesn't pull away in use. Can't hurt. But what I want to do now is thread up that black thread again and do some little decorative stitches. What have I done now? Is my knot gone pear-shaped? Don't come through. And then all that's left to do on this front is to stitch on the little crocheted flowers. But that is now secure. So what I want to do is make it look like black thread is holding it on. But we all know that it's actually the little invisible stitch. I like things to make sure they're strong. Sometimes just doing big stitches is not enough. Like, it's going to fall off. You've got to be mindful that people look at your pieces and they tug at things, and I guess if it's on display and you're at maybe the local show and the judge is there having a good look at your piece, well, you don't want to be, you know, it all falling off in their hands. So invisible stitch is a really good way of making sure construction-wise it's okay. What am I going to do here? I'm just going to, I had a vision, not a vision, I had a thought that I would do an overcast stitch like that. That looks like it's holding it down. Just a random little wonky stitch. Yeah, I like that. We're not coming through. I'm sort of keeping my fingers there too to hold the fabric, and I can feel if a needle comes through. But I am trying to keep the needle as flat as I can. Yeah, like that. And the other spot that I thought I might do a decorative stitch, not only will it help reinforce it, but, you know, it's decorative, is the spine with a running stitch of black. So I'm just going to whip down here with this little overcast stitch. You can hear Gaz in the kitchen. So he's out of the burrow. We're going to town today to do some errands, so, and then we're going to catch up with some dear friends, and we've offered to bring in takeaway Chinese for dinner. And I can't wait. I can taste it, the anticipation. Now I'm back to just a little running stitch just to finish that off. And then I'll just got to bury my knot in the layers so that we never know where it is. Just peel that back a little bit and do a sneaky little knot in there. I thoroughly enjoyed this project. I love it when there's a bit of a theme and you're building a story and it's useful. It doesn't have to be useful, but you know what I mean. So if you wanted to make a slow stitched collaged piece, turning it into a pouch one day is probably not a bad idea. And you just adapt your pouch to suit your piece that you've made. So let's try and do a nice straight stitch right up through there. So in the right spot. Looks pretty good. Let's start with a little back stitch to make sure it's nice and secured. Running stitch through. Are we poking through? Nope. So that will just sneak through there. And I am grabbing the layers below. We might as well take advantage of more secured stitches. Hopefully it's in the right spot. Yep. Gives it another design element. And then I can do a couple extra stitches at the top here. That'll help with the spine pivoting on that point. It's a bit of a stress point there, so. Now, I had a thought, and I just looked over my shoulder. I've got a big bookcase behind me. It's like a buffet, and it's got all sorts of things on it, from things that I can grab when I'm working on a video with you guys, so storage pieces. And I've got hanging, you know those macrame hanging basket plant pot things? I've got a few of those that I've picked up in my travels. A couple came from Paris and one come from, we're on a cruise. Where were we? New Zealand. And I've hung them on hooks on the rail that's at the very top of this cabinet. And in them is just trims. And I had a thought of adding some pom-pom trim. So this is in as a nod to Kate in the Nest, of adding something. Now I'm sure I've got some somewhere. And when I turned around, that popped out from view. And I'm pretty sure I've got some red pom-pom trim around. So that's something else I might explore while I finish this off, is see what pieces are around that could be added to it. You know, you start doing some random things like this, it just takes your piece to the next level. See, what's made me think about it? See where the stuffing is just the wadding is just peeking through? I could trim it off, but I like sort of the size. So I do have this section here that is exposed, and if I grab a scrap piece of fabric to potentially hide it, it hides stitching that I've already done. So I thought maybe there's an opportunity that once the pouch is joined, I could then come back here and add, you know, a little piece of zigzag. If that was cut at the bottom here, it's just a little detail. So I'm thinking along the lines, but I know there's a pom-pom trim somewhere that might look super cool. Or maybe the pom-pom trim gets added, you know, on an edge somewhere. That's very Kate-esque. Hi, Kate. So I'm thinking, why stop? Why not just keep going? So that's where I'm at. All right, guys, I'm going to say that my little house is finished. my pin cushion, my needle book is finished. It's secured. Lace is secured. The only thing I've got to do now on this front is secure these little cuties. And they're only working because that butterfly got added. There's that little bit of pink there that's nowhere else, and it picks up on that pink. So that's why I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stitch them on. Why not? Why not? So that's left to do, and then I will, work on this. And then once that's secured, we can join it together. All right, once again, I'm going to pause the video and catch you all shortly. I'm back again. As I walked away from my desk, I spotted this sitting here from the other day when I chose that button. Look at this little guy. I'm thinking it's a fabric covered button that's on this little necklace of buttons. There's a couple of them on there. I'm going to commandeer him, and I'm going to use that button to secure the pink flower. So now that pink flower doesn't look as, weird by itself. And maybe one of these little buttons, can be used to put a touch of red in the centre of that flower, just to keep tying it all together. They sort of don't look as, I guess, blobbed on there. I don't know. All right, that's it. I'm definitely going to go, and I'd say a couple of days will pass. So I'll be back. Hi everyone, I'm back. Okay, so a day's gone by for me, and I've pretty much stitched everything that I mentioned in the video. I have completed the back section of embellishing. So my plan was to stitch the little flower with some ribbons, and then using feather stitch do the little leaves, which I've done. I ended up putting a little bit of wadding behind it. I just felt like it needed that puffiness. This is very puffy, so I made that puffy, but I kept the little piece of calico from the feed sacks that I'd been, flower sacks that I'd been using in a previous project. And so that is in the background there. Remember, it was all crinkled, so I kept that. Of course, you remember, you've watched this video from the beginning where a day has gone by for me. Once I finished that little element and stitched it into position with that little piece of lace, I then felt like it just needed a pop of the red. So I ended up just doing some little stitches up the side with the stranded cotton. And then as I knotted it off, I just created, I think, 3 loops and then snipped the loops. So I've got this little sprayed piece of, it's technically turkey work would be the stitch, but it wasn't really done like a turkey stitch. It was just, I knotted it, created 3 loops by running back through that corner, knotted it again in behind there so you wouldn't see the knot, and then just snip the loops. I ended up doing one more of those. I didn't go back and do any more. I sort of felt like it would get a bit fussy, so I ended up just doing the one. I put the ticking on. This piece was missing it. Stitched that down, and the inside I also quilted. So you can see those rows have been done, just like I did the quilting in there. You probably can't see it because it's red on red. You can just make it out. So inside's all quilted. So yeah, the next stage is sewing up the side seams. Now you could take it to your sewing machine, of course, but I want that, handmade rustic look. So the plan is to just do an overcast stitch. I have pinned it as well as use these clips. The pins were doing okay, but the clips were heaps better. So I guess my options are now I could go around with invisible stitch and then do a decorative stitch over the top. At least the invisible stitch would make sure it was secure, but I'm going to just go straight for the decorative stitch, I think. And the thought was to do a combination of white or cream and red in various locations. And then I've got that second red that I used. These are the two that are in this flower. So I thought I might just, I guess, make it quite thick. And the other thing I wanted to do, which I didn't grab, is look at using some wool in places so that the edge becomes quite interesting. Let me grab the wool. I've got a couple little pieces of this. Oh, Fudgy. He's just jumped on my chair. Come on, Fudge. Oh, it's been a busy day, hasn't it, Fudge? We've had visitors. We've made some pumpkin scones. We've eaten too many pumpkin scones. Got a bit of a tummy ache. Because I was trying to make a pumpkin disappear, I made pumpkin soup. Oh boy, I'm going to be a bit pumpkined out. So I might skip this top bit because I think I'd want a red thread there anyway. And I'm just going to start working my way. I haven't trimmed it too much because you can see my wadding, you can see the lining, and you can see wadding and the outside. And I could probably cut it all back, but oh, look, I haven't bothered. I sort of want it to feel rustic, and I want these stitches to be quite generous. So I figured it would all get caught anyway. So that's pretty much what the next step is. Just let me check the camera if we got that. It's the end of the day and the temperature's dropping, so the Fudge is like had his dinner. Bandit and Pepper have had theirs. So Gaz is just doing a few more chores out in the shed, and then we'll be settling in for the night. Well, sidling up to that pumpkin soup. So Fudgy's like, I'm ready now. So I've got a pin in there. Where's the top to it? There it is. Get rid of that. Yeah. So even if I go around the whole thing in this pearl cotton cream, then come back and do some embellishing stitching. At least I know it's secure. And I want to build up the texture on the seam. Instead of it just being around we go and we're done, I want to have a little bit of a play. And that's when I finished filming with you that I had the idea of looking out the trims. But I need to do this step first. But I do have my trims close by, so we can pretend that we have stitched the seam up. I think when I sat down, there's been about 60 minutes of footage already, so got about 10 minutes to wrap this show up, which should be fine. That's gonna, yes, Fudgy. This will come together pretty good. I think the main thing is to make sure your needle inserts with plenty of it caught and then comes out the other side with plenty of it stitched in, so you know your side seams are secure. I'll keep going until I run out of thread. I'm going to need a pretty big eye on a needle to do that wool, but I thought it might look really neat up here and then maybe a bit here, like jump around. But it might be a bugger to thread and pull through all these layers too, because I'd say I'll need to dig out maybe a tapestry needle. So we'll see how that goes. That might be a short-lived idea. Where my fabric's a little bit short here, and you can see the wadding, I'm not concerned because that's where these trims will come in, that final icing on the cake. I can hide a multitude of sins with a little bit of trim, is my thoughts. What are you doing, Fudge? Oh, he's smooching the little waste paper bin that's beside my chair. Yep, he's bumping it onto the leg of the table. He's running amok. So this will come together quite quickly, this little seam. Running out of thread, so I might just bury my needle in there with a little knot. Nothing like rustic stitching. Can get away with a lot. Okay. All right, so that's all stitched. I want to do that top edge. And then get a thick needle. I should have one in my original needle book. I'm sorry, I'm just talking to myself here. Okay, let's line all that up. I ended up having to cut a brand new piece of ticking. Remember I made one of, oh, that's the knots on the outside. Remember I made one of them 1/4 of an inch bigger to take into account that the lining on that piece there wasn't really long enough. Well, somehow I put the wider piece of ticking on this one. So when I got the second piece of ticking out, it was smaller than this and did not meet where it needed to meet. So, yeah, a bit of a slight oversight. So, didn't matter. I had plenty of ticking, so I just cut myself a new piece that made it down on the inside panel to where that strawberry fabric was, which was really a bit short. So it's given me a bigger top to my pouch, which I'm okay with. So I just want to quickly stitch this because I'm thinking at least I know it's secure, and then I can come back through with this wool and muck around a little bit. So having started there a second ago, I'm actually going to just, I don't know, I'm a bit of probably an oversewer. I tend to do a lot of invisible stitch because at least I know it's secure. And you know, you don't want your pouch falling to bits the moment you overfill it because you're panic packing to go somewhere and you're taking your entire craft room. So you want your pouch to, you know, handle it. Yeah, that's good. So let me grab, is the cat near me? No, don't want to roll over any tails. I just want to grab my needle book and see if there's a tapestry needle in here. Yeah, here we go. So I've got a point. Oh, see, that's where it might be a bit. That one might do it. Let's have a look. This is a little morsel of yarn left from when I did the Roxy courses down at Green Door Studios back in November, December last year. Yeah, that's perfect. So purely decorative. We don't need to ensure that it's super secure because we've already done that. So what I'm thinking is I could bury that knot up into there. Yeah, that's not going to be seen. And I'm hoping that this will penetrate all of those surfaces. Yeah, awesome. So now I'm just going to do some random stitches. You know, and this thread, you know, you could really, oh gosh, concentrate on what I'm doing, threading the needle. You could even take hang on. I'm trying to do two things at once here. you could even take this yarn and stitch into that sort of, you know, across this way as well, being that it's a bit of a decorative element. Yeah, there we go. Love it. Just to make it look a little interesting. That's gone over the top, that stitch. We don't want that. There we go. My friend that came over and had a cup of coffee, we decided to do a quick trip to the thrift store at Howard. It's a little country town near where I live, and have a quick little look. She wanted to find a few gardening shirts for her husband, so some second-hand ones is always a good way to go for such shirts. So I had a bit of a look through the shelves. I didn't find anything. It was pretty sparse actually, and we were about half an hour before it closed. And I needed some self-raising flour for my pumpkin scones, so it sort of was the main reason we went for a drive. And then we come back and made the scones. So there you go. I'll just bring that down onto the side seam a little, because I just don't want it to finish where the blue or the black ticking finishes. I sort of want it to go a little bit further. And I've got thread, so I might as well use it. There we go. So it's just a highlight stitch. Like I could use that, like I said, to do the whole side seam, but I'd rather it be super secure, and that definitely would be a pressure point there. So yeah, really happy with that. And I might even do, you know, a little bit of decorative stitching through there. I still have the 2 red pearl cottons as well. So yeah, I will definitely do that. Now the other thing I wanted to do with you guys is have a look at the trims. Now I might pause the video because I've actually, for some reason, the TV's not picking up what you guys see up on the wall. So I really want to set that back up, because I can then glance up to the TV to see if it looks okay, the trims that we're auditioning. So I might just pause the video and make sure that we're mirror imaging to the TV properly. Back in a sec. Okay, I'm back. If the internet drops out ever so slightly, that's the first thing I notice, is I lose that connection to the TV. So all good, all fixed. All right, let's have a look at these trims. Remember I said that I had containers hanging in macrame style pot plant holders. Well, this is one of the pot plant holders that holds trims, and it's so handy because A, they're in my face, so I do consider using them, and then when I pick up things at thrift stores or, you know, wherever, some of these come from my America trip, they're not forgotten in the cupboard. They're right here, and I'm pretty sure there is a polka dot, not a polka dot, yeah, there it is, a pom-pom. So upend it and use it. So I'm liking the look of the zigzag down here. I like that when I was fiddling with that earlier. Might start it there. Because I've stitched that side, I can actually go ahead and pin it. I'll come back and embroider that. Ow. Youch. Oh, those pins are sharp, those long, thin ones. I do need to stitch down this corner, and this is where that wadding was. So I will finish that, and I will bring that zigzag at least to there. So that's going to go there, just as a feature. Now this pom-pom trim, one more pin. And there's a green there too. The pom-pom trim could be added this side as a trim. Oh, I don't mind that. There's a green here too. Look at this. Gee, that looks like it's made to measure, doesn't it, with the green? How does that look over this side? It's not really a spot to put it. Pom-pom trim, can it fit over here? Not really. No, flip it back. I do like this. Where am I ever going to use this? I bought it because it reminded me of foliage. So if I was doing a scene, say, and a bunny sitting in a foliage or plant matter, this would help bring texture. So I could put a little bit of that on. This is where your pouches start looking interesting. This is catifying, Kate in the Nest, catifying my pouch. Oh, I do like that. Oh, I think I just have to. It's too good of a match not to. So if that went up in the air, is that going to fall? Is that going to hang down? Because I'd say the manufacturer would have thought it was more logical to have it hanging down, which is a bit boring. And then maybe the red pom-pom trim, it could sit up there on it. Yeah. How luxurious. I'm going to do that. Look, there's a pin in that. That would have been pleasant. So I will keep that out. Okay, so that's definitely happening. I've already trimmed my zigzag, rick-rack, whatever you want to call it. The other thing I like to add is tape measure. And I just spotted a bit of that. Ten centimetres. This looks busy enough, I don't think. You never know when you're going to need a bit of tape measure. But I don't know. Yeah. Is there any others? Here, hello, here's another one. Whenever I see tape measure, cloth tape measures, I buy them because I use them all the time. Where's the end? Yeah, I like that. A 5-inch, 6-inch, 10-inch. So it stops at 12 inches. I wonder if I could get it into there. Would that be odd? If I got it on the inside, that'd be cute. It's not quite. I think I can make that work. If that, wish I had a thought about that a few seconds ago. If that went right in tight there and then followed, let's pin it. The challenge is to make it work. It'd be a nice little detail on the inside of the little pouch. The only thing I need to think about is, do I want it on this side or this side? What side's going to be looking at me? I think this side. So let's change that. Spin it around. I think this is where all the action is. That's actually got a bit of give there, the one. So I could unpin. I could get that in there because that's stitched, not pinned anyway. So let's pin it and see. And then just slip stitch. That's really cute. It's like a little surprise on the inside of the pouch. I like having a bit of tape measure nearby because you just never know. And it's in segments of 12 inches. Oh, that's perfect. 12.5. So if I cut it there, scissors, quick scissors. If I cut it there, I can unpin that because we haven't stitched it yet. And that little tape will be stitched on the inside of the bag. Oh, I like that. Nice little detail. There we go. We have a plan. So I can put that all away before I spot something else out of the corner of my eye. I've got those two trims handy and my piece that's going to go down here. So there you go. All right, well, I will toddle off again, and that's what I'll be stitching this evening. Oh, that's what I was looking for earlier. The black thread that's on this little house. I was looking at this piece and I sort of feel like this needs to appear somewhere else. So I was thinking about doing a few little random stitches somewhere with the black, just to bring a little bit more black. And then over here, I thought about doing a few little X's just to, I don't know, just to pick up the black a little bit. So I do want to keep that with me for the evening of stitching. All right, well, I'm going to pause the video again and finish it, and then I'll be back in a second with it all finished. All right, guys. Hi, everyone. I'm back. It's the next morning. I stitched all evening and I have finished my strawberry pouch. So let me just get my memory back. I side seamed it, which you saw a few seconds ago. I put the red stitching on both sides. I only had it on the one side and I kept sort of looking over here and it just didn't seem balanced. So not only did I do a little bit here, I did a little bit here. Love this. I feel like the piece is balanced as well. I don't know, it just seemed to finish it nicely, that little bit of framing. A few little spots I did a little extra stitching where the fabric was just up in the air. I think when I did this little area, I would have assumed that my side seam would have gone into this slow stitched area here, and it didn't because I can see the polka dots across the bottom, which is of course the lining. So classic slow stitch. You think you're one size, but the more you stitch and the more you do, and the more you add bumps and things like the little pin cushion, your fabric just comes in a little bit. So you have to be flexible. You just have to be. You got to wing it a little bit when it comes to making these pieces, especially when you don't have a pattern. You know, you're inventing the wheel as you go. A little bit of engineering. I love my little pin cushion. There she is, ready to take a thread or two or a little snippet and space to pin my pins. So we might pop a couple of those in there now. Why not? Let's get her ready. Always going to have a couple of pins. I won't put any needles in because I tend to pack as needed for needles. But I'm going to pop a couple of little pins in there. It's rather cute. And secured. What else did I need to show you? Did I mention the buttons in the crocheted piece? I may have, like a couple of days have gone by. So those little buttons, I just felt really tied the whole thing together by having that pop of red there. Now we'll flip it over. So trim, I only used the green. I had the red out, the pom-pom one as well. I had it on the bottom. It just started to get messy. So I just left it simple. I guess this side is more of a simple piece compared to that. And I think too, when I was looking at it, this red stitching at the top really needed to be on both sides. It looked, if I cover it, it looked unfinished. So that's what happened there. I didn't end up using my black thread anywhere. I might still yet do a little bit of running stitch here and there, just a little pop of it. Yeah, I might. But we'll see. we'll see. Inside is complete, and I stitched the tape measure on. I got it nice and close into that seam, because remember, this was an afterthought. So this side was already stitched, and I didn't want to undo it to make sure the tape was within the seam, but that one is in the seam. So that's all good. I like it because, you know, I can glance in there and see a measurement if I want. I tend to do that, you know, put a bit of cloth tape somewhere. So there's the inside, all quilted. Love the feel of it. I feel like I got the texture right. I love this thickness around the top. This is thick anyway. And yeah, I love the versatility of it, to have a little pin cushion in there as well. It's ready for a project. I'm really, really pleased with it. I was showing Gaz, and we were talking about the time it took to make. And oh my goodness, I would have thought there's probably a week solid on this piece. Now, if I was to sell it, I think probably the most I could probably charge is probably $85 Australian. I wouldn't imagine any more, but I don't know. It's so hard to price your work. So $85 for a week's work. Oh, hats off to those who sell their work and have come up with ways to, you know, make it profitable, affordable. You know, it's really tricky. Really tricky. Hats off to you all. But it's not for sale. Don't ask. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think, yeah, fantastic. I hope my bits don't fall out. That's the whole experiment of doing a Juju-inspired pouch. But like I said in a video, it wouldn't take much to have some form of closure there if, you know, you were concerned. But, you know, who travels with one pouch with a project? We've often got numerous pouches, so a zipper pouch could accompany this, you know, with things in that you didn't want to fall out, like sharp scissors and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling on, and that's it. My little strawberry fields is finished. Yay. Okay, guys, look after yourselves. Have a lovely day. Bye.